Talk Show.
It's the Daily Talk Show, episode 471.
And we've got Kate Meade in the building.
Thanks, boys.
Welcome to Melbourne. You were. How long did the drive take to get here from Warrnambool?
Am I including the travel and the getting stuck behind trucks and stuff like
sure,
that?
yeah.
Today it was 3 hours 45 minutes, but that's nothing. You know,
Warrnambool's heading towards the
Port Fairy.
Port Fairy, yeah. I mean, lots of good fishing trawlers. I've got a friend who his father has a fishing boat out there. I've spent a bit of time down in Warrnambool.
It's where you see the whales.
I mean, always good to start a podcast with some food chat. One of the best hamburgers out of Warrnambool.
Kerman's, are you talking about Kerman's hamburger?
I've never been.
Oh, my goodness. Next road trip, you're coming to Warrnambool. My daughter works there. We can probably hook you up.
Oh, this is good. This is the reason you're on the show.
I was kind of hoping that, I'd be here for Fat Friday, but,
Well, we could take a Fat Friday down to Kerman's.
Definitely.
So I first had it when I was probably 12 or 13, stayed in Peterborough, went to Kerman's. I just looked, 70 years they've been open.
Yeah, it's incredible. And they just actually opened, which I thought that they would never do, but another store in Geelong. So they've kind of done that first franchisee type thing. So, yeah, it's interesting watching, but it's just the same every time. You know what you're going to get. It's the best hamburger in the world. That's it.
Is it the old fish and chip style thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like Andrew's Hamburgers in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Sort of that same style. Tastes like, you cook the patty on your barbecue at home. But real good.
Yeah.
Real good.
Kate, you're one of the people who you've got a regional show. However, it's anything but regional in regards to the types of content you're creating. We're looking at your Instagram yesterday and scrolling through all the places that you've been, because I was like, I'm sure Kate's been to LA. How does someone who has a radio show in Warrnambool pitch to get something like being able to travel around the world?
So I suppose the first thing is it doesn't matter that it's in Warrnambool or it's in Melbourne or it's in Sydney. The pitch is still the same. You're not thinking, I'm in a regional area, or I'm in Melbourne or Sydney. You're thinking, how can I best provide the best competition or the best content, or what's the most funny, and get to it. So,
are content directors though? Are there a lot of content directors that are saying, "No, it's all about local. You've got to be in your town"?
It's the hardest. It's kind of a little bit difficult to explain, but for every market that we're in, we have localised spots for every single station. So I'm kind of moving off track for you, but say from 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm recording local spots, and so is my on-air partner, John, for every single market that we're on, that all play at the same time. So, for example, if we're on in Warrnambool, at one stage we're also on in Swan Hill, and at 7:15 we're both firing off the same spot. But in one place I'm saying, we've got $7,300 at the Murray Downs Golf and Country Club, and in Warrnambool I'm saying, did you see the whales this week? Get down to Logan's Beach. This is amazing. And so that's happening for 8 stations right across regional Victoria and into southern New South Wales.
See, Josh would fall apart trying to remember $7,300 over
or just
here.
Even any sort of cities involved. I would have said the whales were in Swan Hill. I would have going down the Murray wouldn't be doing too well.
No, you've got to be really careful. And so some mornings you have to play it back because you go, did I get the right town today? Did I write the same call, like 1332 3SH or 1134, 3CS? You've got to know all the calls for all the stations.
I mean, the thing is, even when you're just speaking to one audience, you put stuff out that wasn't meant to go out. I did it a heap of times in Shepparton.
I mean, you're a Gronk.
Yeah, I am a Gronk. It was a Gronk move. And even playing other people's ads.
It was your first week.
That was one and a half years in.
Yeah. Every time I ask a question at the moment, I go, it's my first week, I'm sorry.
It only lasts so long. But I think it's still okay. Have you stuffed up a bunch?
Yeah. Absolutely. But I've got a great on-air partner, and isn't that the thing? Like when you've got someone that you work with, you've got each other's back to pick up and
I thought
push
you were going to say you blame it on him.
That's what I do.
I think, the ultimate first lesson was if you make a mistake, own up, like almost the second that it's happened, rip that Band-Aid off straight away. But
if you say
I've
it
been
first,
lucky.
it's more powerful if you say it first, right?
Yeah.
So, as you might have known, I was in Shepparton.
He talks about it a lot.
No, but I didn't grow up there. I was a blow-in. But you grew up around that region.
Yeah.
So this is like you got your own brekkie show. This is like if you grew up in Melbourne, you got your own brekkie show in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Is that like that's pretty fucking cool.
It's crazy. It really is. So, I mean, you grow up listening to the local stars and things like that. And I suppose for me, I always wanted to be in radio, but I thought it was only for cool people.
Then you realise it's the dorkiest group you could possibly imagine.
And I didn't realise that I'm an absolute ultimate dork when it comes to all things audio and radio and how it works. So I just go, it's just all a bit of a dream come true. Like, yeah, you have your mornings where you go, what am I doing? It's 3:30 or whatever, but you go, this is the coolest job.
And so intern Pete, who is your bro, was he wanting – I know he started his career quite early.
Yeah, same station.
Same station?
Same station. So, I've got – he's laid the path, and it's he's had an incredible kind of journey, really.
I mean, but he helped you by going by intern Pete, first name intern, second name Pete.
We've got a really great relationship, but Peter is so well known. And I'll go, Peter Depley, he's my brother. And I either go, oh, or I get, oh, he's amazing, but it's mainly the second. So
well, you'll get why if you listen to that episode with him.
Yeah, so he's always been kind of that push for that. But, we watched him. We watched him start locally. We watched him. I remember him being on Merrick and Patrol. And to go back to talking about pitching an idea, I was in the dance industry fairly heavily, and he was working on the Merrick and the Highway Patrol. And I remember I was saying, I'm trying to build this thing at the dance festival. We want to do something really big, something really special, but I've got no money. I've got nothing. And he said, it's a bit like the barbecue. And I'm like, what's the barbecue? And he was saying it was Merrick wanted this old car, this old Ford, and he wanted a barbecue built in the boot. And so Peter was a producer at the time with, the team, and they had to get a free car, free tyres, get an engineer to put the barbecue in the boot type thing. And it was just a matter of leveraging on what you've got, to get them to come on board. So he just used to say that all the time.
Well, you said you've been on radio 3 years, third year.
Yeah, and this year will be the end of my third year.
End of your third year. So before you had the dance school or the
dance festival.
Like the festival. Yeah. So you built this thing that had hundreds of people coming.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before we have a mutual, which is Craig Harper. You got Craig down to talk. Tell us about this.
So I can't remember where I found Craig online, but essentially the whiteboard lessons and his cut the bullshit attitude on life. Stop whinging about it, just make it happen thing. The dance industry is just this incredible but very it's exactly the same as the radio industry or any industry when you look at it. It's really quite tight. But the Victorian Dance Festival, part of it was we would organise a professional development day for the business owners. And every year they'd come along or you go attend other conferences, and it was all very, it's dance. So it's, lovely and beautiful and sweet. And I thought, you know what, we need someone to come through and just go, what are you talking about?
He's known as the Velvet Sledgehammer.
Oh, look, he dropped the F-bomb in the first 30 seconds and I was like, this is going to go well. And to this day, people still say he was one of the best speakers that they've ever encountered. And, for me, he always just said, stop, Kate, you're not thinking big enough. You're just not thinking big enough. So anytime I come up with, let's do this, I think, what's extra? Think bigger. So don't, Like he used to say, why did you call it the Victorian Dance Festival? Like, think bigger. And I said, well, the Australian Dance Festival was taken. So, and he said, well, you should have went the Australian Dance Summit, So, he would really push. And so we started treating the Victorian Dance Festival like VDF, like KFC. So it wasn't Kentucky Fried Chicken anymore. It was KFC, so VDF. Yeah, so we wanted it to become VDF.
And so that entrepreneurial spirit, going back to that pitching side of things, being talent and going in and saying, hey, I want to do this thing, is that an unusual thing or is that very common?
Apparently it's unusual.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I think the challenge I've got at the moment is I think like an entrepreneur, but I'm not the boss. Yeah. So I'm like actually working for someone and there's rules in place and there's managers and, when you start moving outside of the box that you're supposed to sit in, which is turn up and do the radio every day, you have to very quickly learn how to look after all of those relationships.
How do you do it? Because I think I suck at that.
Yeah, that's why we work for ourselves now. Because no one will employ us.
Yeah.
So you've got the you've done an amazing job of being able to do what you want, actually get overseas, pitch it in, and still be like employable. So
Yeah.
you've obviously got a knack for relationships.
I had a strategy when I got the first job, which was fly in under the radar and try not to make a scene. That was the first part. And
That was not Peter Depler's advice.
No, but see, he'd left a fairly decent legacy that I needed to, but yeah, learn and get really, really good, and so that then a trust would build, I suppose. Again, I had incredible support around me, but at the end of that first year, I actually called a guy called Jamie Angel. He's up in Sydney, Triple M. And I said, I just don't want to be the girl in the room that giggles or laughs along. I need to get really good and strong on air. And I've got this whole other side, of business management and marketing and PR, and it's wasting, So he put me in contact with Craig Bruce. And very quickly, got the mentor and I just wanted to get as good as I could fast so that then I could start introducing all those other skills. And it's very hard to say no to someone, or I got very comfortable with the word no. Like I'm okay if you go, oh, no, okay, we're not interested. And I just go, oh, let's just not no today. There's another way. So it's just getting really good at, looking after the people around you and finding out what their skills were and listening. And then finding out what they want and then painting a picture so they can't say no.
I mean, you're very good at the ask. I heard an interview where you were talking about people are afraid of asking.
Yeah.
Has that been something that has been learnt over time? Where did that come from?
Mum.
Yeah.
My mum and I, Peter and I will both say, I mean, she was we lived regional Victoria, country dairy farmers, so there's nothing special or whatever, just hardworking
Tough
people, they work from the moment they woke up, but they would take us down to Melbourne and Mum would say to us, if you ever get lost, you have to go up to someone and say, where do I go? She would she would stand somewhere and send us off to go and say to someone, oh, where's, Swanston Street or whatever, and how far away is it? So we had to learn very quickly to get used to responses from people and, don't be afraid. If you're afraid, you got to push that down because how are you going to get forward? How are you going to get forward if you don't ask the question? So
It's rejection therapy.
Yeah, from like 6 years old. I don't know if it would fly in 2019, but
I'm going to do that.
Well, now it's just
My
Google
son-
Maps. That's the
no,
problem
not
now, isn't
yet.
it?
Yeah.
Well, you're in your phone. Yeah, I guess. But so it removes building that muscle to be able to do these
The
kind
friction.
of
Well,
things.
what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? Like no one's dying here. We're not committing murder or doing anything illegal. So if you say no, big deal. It just might not be the right time, or there might not be money in the budget, or they just don't like you.
Have you had a surprising yes from a question that you thought was going to get a no?
Oh, regularly. Because once you have that theory and you throw it out to the wind, you start asking more questions. And then, you're always surprised with the answer. What's the recent one? Oh, yeah. I was playing backyard cricket with my kids last December. And I sent an email off and I said to my group general manager and to John, my partner, co-host, and I said, wouldn't it be funny if we could play backyard cricket on the MCG? Wouldn't that be, awesome? Because we're everyday Australians. We're not athletes. This is never going to happen. And they were like, yeah, if you can get the MCG, we'll
support you.
we'll support you. So I found out who was in charge of community engagements and stakeholderships, and I got on the phone and I said, hey, it's Kate Meade. I'm wondering if I could book in a meeting for you. I've got a bit of an idea. Can I have the MCG? And within 2 weeks, we got we think this is a great idea. So in the next couple of weeks, we will be rolling this out, absolutely saying that, if you are a regional Victoria who has always dreamed, watched cricket on the TV and thought, I will never have that opportunity, we're going to give you that chance. And that come from a silly idea of just watching the kids play backyard cricket, thinking we'll never be athletes. Yeah. Wouldn't it be funny if we could get the MCG? Why don't we just ask instead of saying, nah, that'll never happen? Yeah. Let's see what they say if you.
That's so cool.
Do you see yourself as creative?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And so in the business sense, like I see you as creative. I mean, I'm asking just a question to see if you think it, but the business stuff and the creativity in the dot connection versus the, coming up with ideas? Which one came first? Was it did you see approaching business as a creative endeavor, or is it a business head?
So that would be the business side of it coming in, the practicality and the finance side of it, and just having that understanding that, so great idea, but in order for that to happen, there's got to be some type of buy-in from all stakeholders. So it can't just be a fluffy idea like, oh yeah, we'd like to play cricket, like, how's it going to work? Who's going to fund it? Have we got support for on-air time? All those types of things. So even to pitch it to the content director, so I had the idea in the morning, I was sending the email that afternoon, but I'd already had to think about all the steps. So stack stack it so that they can't say no to you. Yeah. So paint the picture like you've thought of every single area. Is there a local sales strategy?
That was the first cough that Mr. 97's ever done. That was quite impressive. Are you okay?
It's pistachio. You can turn your mic off. You don't have to cough into it. Radio 101, podcasting 101.
Is he okay though? Are you okay?
He's not.
Water got him.
Okay. Have you ever done this on air? Has this ever happened to you, Kate, where it's been this bad? Of you coughing like this?
Oh, no. I've probably just more lost my voice and I sounded like a man. Are you? I'm really worried about it.
No, I'm all good now.
He's fine.
He flushed a bit,
Yeah, he's
probably because you've
pointed it out. Do you have
I'm going to play it on and pretend like it didn't happen.
No. Do you have a dump button?
Well, legally you have to.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. 7-second delay.
And so going back to making that call and talking about stacking things, is that about making sure that you have everything organised before you make the first
pitch.
call? Okay.
Yeah, before you make the pitch.
Well, because I think some creatives can have these great ideas and they also don't have the answers for some of the questions that would be required to get it across the line. And so you put things forward hoping that we don't have to present these answers for you.
Yeah.
But trust me, it's a great idea and it will work.
Yeah. And that's the gap. And I think for me, if I didn't know something, I would get to find out how to do it online. So when you have no money, so the business side of it, that's what running my own business taught to me. When you don't have the money to hire a marketing person or a PR person or someone to do the books or a spreadsheet or whatever, you got to learn it. You got to learn it quick, and you have to be upfront with people and go, I don't know, and that's why saying the radio sense and pitching that idea, and wanting to get better and reach out to Craig was because there were gaps in my knowledge and it drove me nuts. So I could, in that first year of radio, I might have been having ideas, but because I had too many gaps of how the radio kind of worked, I wasn't really getting anywhere. So I had to get good quick. That's how I looked at it.
Knowing how to use the tool allows you then to be creative with the tool.
Whipping up, a frenzy of,
And so if people are in a market where they've got a CD or a producer that feels like they're not allowing them to be creative, are there mechanisms to get buy-in from people and to build those relationships?
Yeah, well, aren't relationships everything? Like that has to be negotiated having that meeting and saying, hey, listen, I feel like I'm hitting some brick walls here. Like how are we going to work through this? Or how can we so I always say, tell me what the rules are. Yeah. So I can play the game because then you can bend them.
And what are the rules in the area that you're in?
Rules with ideas or
no,
rules
I think is there because say taking the regional example with Tommy being in Shepparton, he could have thought, oh look, we've got to be local all the time. We've got to be talking about the story at the shopping centre, not going to LA.
We got told, no, you have to go local.
So that was a rule.
The biggest thing we got was going to the Logies. We got we got a hotel room each, and we got to record the breaks and send them back. And I mean that was about as far as it got.
And so this is so you're syndicated amongst a bunch of different areas.
Yeah.
So this is, I guess, the new age version of breakfast in some ways, where it's like your is it voice tracking? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, a yes and no. So more of a no than a yes. So we have localized spots that play out in every market, all that play out at the same time, but then we're live the rest of the time.
Sure.
And it's just that we're not saying we're in, like you guys wouldn't say, yeah, we're sitting here in Ferguson Street. You know, like it wouldn't be.
Yeah, because we don't give an address away.
Sorry.
God. No, we don't.
We need a dump button.
You can look us up.
Especially when you get the radio
You
people
can
in.
look us up.
8 Ferguson. Please send any free stuff.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say order that says send us mail.
It's on the front door.
PO Box 400, Abbotsford, Victoria is easier just because we're not always here.
Yeah. So how often are you saying where you are anyway? And
Well, this is the funny thing because Tommy and I are always talking about, like, I love the idea of painting the picture. The first 20 episodes, I would say things like, like the weather outside and stuff. And Tommy's like, you're doing a fucking podcast. What
It's 2020. You're listening to these guys talk about.
It was 2018.
No, but saying 2020. If you're listening.
Oh yeah, sure. People
3
going
years
back
earlier,
and listening.
it's like,
But
that was gone.
But there is something in being able to make people feel like you're in a similar sort of spot or things like that. If it's not geography, are there other rules? Like, what is the rule book for you?
Oh, it's that word, isn't it? Relatability. That hopefully the story that we're telling or the piece of news that's happening in the day is something that's affecting their lives. And it's so we're putting that unique spin on that same story that everyone else is telling. And hopefully the way that we're telling it, you can't get that anywhere else.
Yeah.
And so you have to tune in to the Morning Rush to hear what does John and Kate have to say about that.
Are there commonalities?
So we're like everyday people. Like we're not superstars. Do you know what I mean? We're
Yeah.
just like you and me, you know? We're not,
And so are there commonalities? Like I think about those shows like Bobby Bones in the US, he's got a bunch of markets or whatever. I think about like, okay, country radio, they like certain things. What is the demographic or psychographic of a listener of your show?
I always think, so on paper it's 45 plus and, you know, we've got music from the 70s, 80s and 90s, less of the 90s obviously, and they're just country, hard-working people. So they don't want to hear too much. We get Peter Ford in who does a celebrity report and we get Tony Leonard to talk about all the sport, you know, and they have a great affiliation with those. They're our characters. But, they're just everyday, nothing too over the top or fluffy. That you know, it's just everyday living stuff. So that's a common country thing, you know, good manners and, Aussie larrikin, have a laugh, don't take life so seriously. Yeah.
The simple ones that connected for me, like the phoners that did really well, were just the most simple, relatable things. I got hit in the nuts at the at the shopping centre. I was swinging my red basket and I just hit myself. And that old school feeling, you don't get it much when you get older. Of you feel like they're coming up into your stomach.
Yeah.
So many people. When did you last get hit in the nuts? I was like, oh, mate, I was putting down the blinds last night and it got me. Just things like that.
And there is nothing, I mean, we're so lucky John has been on this show for something like 14 years.
Wow.
So he's the king of it, really, the market. But the people that listen to the show, they're kind of like family members and you get a real kick out. We have no problems getting calls and you talk about crazy topics. I mean, this morning I saw someone in my news friends had, friends on Facebook wrote, the Pavlova, did it come from Australia or New Zealand first? And I just thought, I'll whack a poll up on Facebook, see what happens. Someone commented underneath it, no, and you know what gets me? I'm a New Zealander and Kiwi, oi, 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 actually was ours first and you guys stole it from us. So, then all of a sudden we start talking about it on the radio, people start ringing up and then it turned into not just Pavs and where it come from, but it talked about, Christmas, what you're bringing for your Christmas food. Like people love to talk about food. But
It was an all-out brawl.
it was just all on
Good
and
old
the New
regional
Zealand
brawl.
people are angry at us. And
I find that like regional or outer city areas, the news and what they cover can sometimes get a bit quirky and interesting. Like, for example, gates were getting stolen around the Goulburn Valley area and one bloke stole 300 or 400 newspapers.
Yeah.
And so we did this thing was like, what could he possibly do with these newspapers? Give us a call. Let's just make it up. What could this guy actually do with it? And so we got like, oh, he's got to line his floor. He's got heaps of cats or something. It was funny like that. Is there anything specific to these regions where you broadcast to that you're finding some sort of quirky stories? That are,
It's always full of it. And so the trick then is making it so a little story might happen, about the gate thief or whatever it might be.
you got one too in Warrnambool?
But it has been known to happen. So say that story came out of Sale, so that's Traralgon area, our market up Gippsland. We then have to look at that and then go, is there elements that make this networkable? So we don't have to say it was happening in Bairnsdale, but would you believe this guy has been stealing gates, or whatever the story is. But so that's the trick of it, finding the local stories. But even there's fun in even comparing local newspapers to the Herald Sun some days, like Herald Sun's leading this story and we're leading with Copper kicks 4 goals on the weekend, from
Mate, finished with burnouts in the divvy van.
And then have you been in the back of a divvy van? Yes, hands up. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
And it just, it's great.
What are the things that stand out for people is as in, that's very metro? Like what is something that just goes over people's heads or they don't really relate to that might be, say, on a national show? So like what people within Melbourne are talking about that doesn't connect within
Some of
the region?
I don't want to say it doesn't connect, but it just depends on the show, doesn't it? It's like 3AW, we're going to be talking about things that Fifi, Fev and Byron, there's no way known in hell they're going to talk about it. So I just think, for me, you get in at 4 o'clock in the morning or 3:45 and start looking at what's happened overnight type thing and you write it all up on the board. And it's just a matter of finding out what's going to connect most with our listeners and knowing that we take national news that's coming out of Melbourne. So they're going to get the national story. So we get a real kick out of, David Armstrong. We can grab his audio out some days, because he said something funny that we can't believe's in the news or, and pull things apart that way. But,
And with John doing 12 years and then you coming in, was it a shock for him when you're like, all right, I want to go overseas?
Yeah. Well, I suppose it was a gamble. I thought you were going to say, I just had these awful memories. We had a big night on the drink one night and I said, oh my God, like we were about 12 months in or whatever. And I thought, I was a nightmare when I started. Like I was green as, I had no idea what I was doing at first radio job and we're on this big show. And he said, I'd never do it again. I would never take on a newbie again. And I thought, I've killed him. I was like...
What was it? What do you think? What was the green in you? What were you doing?
Just no experience. Everything was new. Talking in front of a microphone, how to tell a story. Yeah, they took a big gamble. Yeah.
Well, you don't know what you don't know, and so there's a lot that you don't know going into that.
Yeah, and it's lovely now because I say any bad habits, really, it's John's fault.
And so you went to. So how long in? So I guess it was 2 years in.
So we'd done that first 12 months and we had a planning meeting. John came down to Peterborough and I had written out a list of the top 10 things that were happening for 2018, everything from the royal wedding to the Commonwealth Games were happening, lots of different things for the year. And I went through them and I'd left the royal wedding at the bottom and then I said, wouldn't it be amazing if we could go over and do, and he was like, Kate, I have been with the company for 24 years and I am telling you that there is no chance that they are ever going to approve this. And then he took a moment and then he said, but I'll tell you what, if you can pitch it and you get a yes, I'll support you. And I said, okay. So we called our CEO, Mark Taylor, then and there at my kitchen table and he said, yeah. Sounds all right to me. If you can get the partner, what would a partner look like? And he helped us work through the names of partners. And
was John like, fuck?
I didn't want to go. Now I've got to go.
I think he sometimes says that every day. What have I said yes to? But so that's how it come about. And then of course because it hadn't been like everything had to be mapped out. So I called it the playbook, really. Everything John we just divided up all the jobs. Like how did the technical requirements work? Who's going to handle the partnership? That was the most important thing with Trafalgar and little details like the logo, where's it placed and on all our information going out. Is there a local sales strategy? So can we sell this locally to try and monetize this a little bit? Well, yeah, there was, local travel agents were able to buy in radio advertising. If you're loving John and Kate's excellent UK adventure, you can have one too. Pop into Hello World Travel.
Interesting.
So we were able to, I keep talking about that whip, like you just keep whipping things up until everyone's,
And what support do you have within like the network and the station? Do you have integration tactics? Do you have producers? Like what sort of
No, that's all her job.
Well, it sounds like it. It sounds like you're doing.
And that's probably that moment that you go, that is probably the difference that we're talking about between a metro radio show and a regional radio show. We don't have those resources. So we have incredible teams, and we've got great group content directors. Our CEO is very hands-on, which is lucky. John, with his experience, means that he has bought the trust.
Yeah.
So Kate might have a crazy idea about something, but because John is the good stayer, they're not going to get too carried away because John's going to keep it all in line.
Yeah.
So that's really, really, really good. But, that's the difference. We don't have that. So if we want to make something happen, sometimes John will say, yeah, cool, you want to play backyard cricket? Off you go. Yeah. And I go, okay.
But then you're in control more so because you're the one who has to make it happen.
Yeah.
With your business and when you were growing that and where you got it to, what was some of those things that you applied this approach to for your own thing that, didn't have anyone saying, yes, you can do that or no, you can't do that?
So just to paint that picture for you, the Victorian Dance Festival was started in 2013 as an idea that instead of travelling to a metro city to experience the best dance instructors in all of Australia, maybe just for once we could have it in our own backyard. Right? So there was no reason to come together other than we're going to pick out the best instructors and then going to teach you how to dance. So people you wouldn't have access to. And we had 117 people come on that first one. Now at that same time, I was trying to get a radio job and I was getting 1,000 no's. Same time. So every no that I got, I enrolled in my Masters of Media and Communications here at Swinburne. So I would drive down to Melbourne and I would do two hours worth of study and then drive home. But what I was learning in that was PR and marketing, and how to tell a story and things like that. And so what happened was we were starting to apply all those types of things, all the stuff that we do now in radio, to a dance festival which had not been done before. So we would have an event then, and I remember saying to our photographer, we might only have a couple of hundred people here, but you need to make it look big. You need to make this look like I'm sitting at home and I wish I was at the Victorian Dance Festival, so that kid that sees it on Instagram or on Facebook or whatever goes, Mum, I need to buy that $250 ticket and I need to be there the next year. So the following year we had 1,300 people turn up. And then the next
100% increase, 1,000%.
It was a lot, right?
Don't do math. I'm so sorry.
And then the next year we had
10 times.
2,300.
Okay, let me do the math here.
20 times.
And it kept growing. And then we started building partnerships with people, with big companies, one of them being Energetics. And they'd always said, Kate, it would be amazing in Melbourne. And I just a flippant, those ideas that happen. And I had said, I'd only go to Melbourne for one thing, and that would be the Melbourne Town Hall. Like if this country girl is going to go to Melbourne, she's going straight to the Town Hall. Yeah. And they said, okay, well, we will give you 20 grand. You go to the Melbourne Town Hall, Kate. And so we had 5,000 people in the Melbourne Town Hall. We couldn't have fitted another person in there. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
And when you were trying to get a radio job and all those no's.
I get so embarrassed.
Yeah, what was like? Did you have like an air check or whatever? Like what did you actually?
Oh, it was awful. Yeah. So my radio story was again. So same year, 2013, enrolled in the Melbourne Radio School, which is now closed, and then thought because my brother had got a job straight away that you would just do the radio course and then start working the radio station, and it didn't kind of pan out like that. So, but what would happen was I'd apply.
Do you think you'll miss? Like, do you think that there are people that are selling that dream? Like, where do people get that?
So
idea from?
My challenge, though, to be fair, was I've got 3 kids, so I could actually only go to 2 radio stations. My options weren't that big because my husband, bless him, said, well, that's great, you've got this dream, but we're not just going to pack up and move to Queensland, for you to take that first job. Like you've got to get something locally.
Yeah. And with radio, it's like people go everywhere.
You've got to take the first job wherever it comes up, right? So I used to apply for jobs for fun. Like, am I any good at this? So just let me know. And then they go, yeah, you're good. Like, can you come up? No. Sorry.
That's the best. Yeah, I'll do this job. No,
Yeah.
don't want to.
It's
Sorry,
almost like
I just
the
wanted to
dating
check.
scene. Just like you're
Yeah,
going
yeah.
on dates.
Will you
not
go out with
interested.
me? Yes. I don't want to anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I know it sounds awful, but I was
Yeah.
looking to see, do I need to let go of this dream type thing? So
No, it's the ultimate troll. It's so good.
So essentially what would happen is a job would come up. I remember a job come up and it was for the local newsreader, and they said, well, Kate, you've got a lovely voice, but we're going to go with the guy who's been working at the local newspaper. So, he's obviously a journalist, so that makes complete sense. So I'd enrolled in the Masters of Media and Communications. So the first subject that I actually enrolled in was journalism. And then the second job that come up was production, and I thought, how hard can it be? Sorry. And so stupid, so naive. Thought I could handle. I had some basic skills, and they said, yeah, nah. And so I enrolled in advanced production so that I could edit and make the ads if I needed. So if the next job come up. So my theory was become a jack of all trades, just keep going, and I balloon bombed a radio station.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, what does
So I sent, the saying in radio was top of the mind, right?
yeah,
So I
sure.
only had 2 stations, and I was watching people get employed, and I was like, oh, they're great, but, and they get the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I balloon bombed one of the stations. So I sent 1,000 balloons in just with a card that said top of the mind, top of the mind.
Gee, I reckon I went to see the Penguins the other day. They said how bad balloons are. So you probably killed about 10 balloons for that. But
No,
they weren't letting them out into the air.
air.
But apparently it was very sad the next day when they come in and they were halfway.
What did it cost you?
Lots
what's
of
1,000?
money. Yeah. I invest.
Buck a balloon.
And where do they get
Delivered.
sent? How to get? Is it a truck?
So someone had to turn up at the local country radio station with all these balloons, and let them know. And I wanted just to say, hey, I'm here, because I'd been up to Sydney with Peter and I'd met this girl, and she said to me, I turned up at a radio station with biscuits in the shape of stars, and I said, I can bring you the stars. And I got hired on the spot, and I thought, okay, this is how you do it. So, 6 months later, I sent a cake that said top of the mind. This is what I say. I'm so embarrassed.
No, this is so good though. I love it.
Top of the mind. I'm still here. I'm keen. I'm just letting you know.
Was this at the balloon station? Same one?
Same station,
The
right?
balloon girls are back again.
But she's bought cake.
Yeah.
So it's okay. So cake, top of the mind written on the top of it. Just want to let you know I'm at uni now and I'm doing these subjects.
Yeah.
That
This
sounds like
is
a
so
great
good.
subject.
Well, I think there's the naivety in it at the start, and looking back and feeling like it's cringe. It's like, yeah, it might be cringe to you now, but if you didn't do that, it might not have worked.
But that's
look-
also all you had at the time, right? Which is like you were realizing, okay, I don't have these skills yet.
Yeah.
But if I hit them with enthusiasm,
Yeah.
I mean, the person that sends the balloons
Didn't work, by the way.
also probably would write a haiku poem. Did you ever write
Any
one of
poems?
those? Any
No,
no
I
poems?
pulled the line at poems, but then I thought, okay, I've probably done everything I can do there before I got too annoying.
Which station was it?
The one that I'm at now,
Okay, great.
right? So the other station.
And what was the job? What was the specific job that you were asking
No,
for?
there was no
You
job.
were just top of mind.
I met with the local sales manager because I thought I could do sales, and I remember she said to me, "Why do you want to do sales?" And I was like, "Because there's so many opportunities. Like once I'm in the door, man,
Yeah.
like the world's our oyster. You just got to let me in, And I think they thought, yeah, she's a lunatic.
Exactly.
Go
Well, if you can get past those balloons, you can.
So then, look, the other station, I sent crayfish and beer.
Crayfish and beer.
Yeah,
What,
that
some
was
local
before
crayfish,
Christmas.
yeah?
Yeah, local crayfish and beer. And then I thought, okay, now I go quiet. I go quiet and I get to work. So really just be ready the moment that an opportunity comes up. So study, what do I need to know? Yeah, get reading out loud, practicing. I was building the dance festival at the same time, and I was loving the story. So I started traveling around regional Victoria, telling and interviewing the stories of the studio owners and making them the focus. And then that became my marketing. I was telling the stories of country dance. Yeah, so all the skills that I was learning for this dream job in radio, I was applying to a dance festival that was skyrocketing, and then finally got the dream job, and then realised you can have everything but not all at once. And an opportunity come up, I can't believe I've done it. But yeah, an opportunity come up. Someone said, could we buy your dance festival? And I thought, when does that even happen? Like what?
And it was KFC. They bought it.
I thought they were getting KFC. So
That's
I
so
took
cool.
it. Yeah. So I say it's so embarrassing, and it's it makes me come across like I'm really full on.
But that's a way to do
No,
it.
you
isn't it?
were. You said 1,000 balloons. That's
1,000
but
balloons
I
is
just-
huge.
You
There's
know,
also
but
a
maybe in
helium
a metro
shortage.
station that might have worked, or like those
look
kind
that
of
up, Nathan?
stunts might have worked. I don't know.
Oh, maybe not metro stations, because I feel like
Well, they wouldn't have got past security.
I feel like it's a unique approach to a regional, if they're called regional, or provincial station. Like it's probably more stands out in these markets because they're like, oh, here's someone that really, really wants.
Yeah, well, I thought that
give it
was
a
the
crack.
theory. So maybe I was a little over the top.
Well, you don't know. Here's the thing about all these opportunities we create is we don't know if they would have happened if you didn't do that.
Yeah,
so if
that's
there's
right.
one thing in the process to get there, like I've started a bunch of businesses. I started one, got into a bit of debt with one, and it was if I didn't do that, Josh and I wouldn't have been doing the production stuff together and wouldn't have started communicating and working out, let's do some creative stuff and do the podcast.
Yeah.
And so I think, I could easily regret all of those things I've done, but I can't because
Well, that's the
now-
way that you get to the thing. I was just asking 97, has there been a helium shortage?
Yeah, there's a helium crisis at the moment.
It came from Warrnambool because Kate Meade started
What
it.
does that actually mean? What do we use helium for?
MRIs and balloons.
MRIs
Balloons.
and balloons.
So some poor people just aren't
Parties.
get an MRI.
Yeah.
And
Saving people.
Yeah. So
Far out.
if you're trying to get a radio job, maybe
Tone it down on
What-
the balloons.
yeah.
Well, I saw the penguins. They were saying, like, not the people who look after the penguins were saying bubbles. We should be promoting
Yeah,
bubbles.
yeah.
The problem is it's just a little bit more hands-on because you actually have to be outside.
Isn't
with
the saying,
wet.
once you know better, do better.
Yeah,
so I
exactly.
now know that balloons
Oh,
are
yeah.
bad and
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't recommend
Well, I still
it.
need to get it. I need to get a keep cup. So
Yeah.
we've all got things
Yeah.
to fix.
Yeah. Oh, I love that story of doing your own business because I
Yeah.
think this creative landscape, it's hard to do it solo. Like what I liked about working in the radio station was it's a job to show up to and then do the creative thing that I also love. What for you? What do you see 10 years down the track?
Oh, I get people say that to me regularly now, and I don't know what it looks. I'm a huge believer in you write down what, I'd written this down. I had a photo in a station, I knew what I wanted, I was really clear about that. I can't see as clearly forward 10 years like I would like to at the moment. And I wonder if that's because I literally am enjoying every day. I have to admit I have days where I miss that dance festival, but I think it's because I miss I was the boss of that. No, that sounds really, but I got the buck stopped with me. I could make decisions. I could make them really fast. I didn't have to run it through 10 people to get that approval or whatever. I could change it tomorrow if I woke up.
Well, I think it's great because
know.
also along with being a leader and the boss is that all the shit stuff, all the
so
stuff ups end on you too.
I think so in that regard, having all those people in front of me, I sleep a bit better because I'm not like worried about how I'm going to pay the bills and things.
But there's also a resilience in your ideas because you have to sell them in so hard every time.
You talk about the pitching. I always think that the money and the stakeholder element are really, really important in everything that you're thinking about. I talk about this night at home in Peterborough. It was 11 o'clock at night and I was sitting on the beanbag and
Just painting the picture.
yeah.
Really well.
Yeah, this is good.
Sitting on the beanbag. So you can imagine in the jammies, the whole bit's going on. And I had $69,000 worth of bills in front of me.
I think you're going to say 69,000 balloons.
I got a deal.
Biggest
No,
That's a lot of bills.
That's
What
a
do
lot of bills. So this is the year that we're going into the Melbourne Town Hall, and I'm thinking, how am I going to pay? Like some people, this is their yearly income. This is like crazy town, and it had never happened before, but I had a vision of what it would look like. Packed out dancers all on the floor of the Melbourne Town Hall dancing together. And I went to bed that night and I got up and I thought, righto, I need to get back on the phone. I need to sell 1 more ticket today, 2 more tickets, 3 more tickets, and speak to is there anything that I haven't sold yet? You know, I'd pretty much sell a kidney at this stage. But so, cool.
She was trying to buy Mr. 97s when she walked in.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? So every element of the Victorian Dance Festival was sold. I would, absolutely have sold a kidney if I needed to.
How do you know what things are worth? Like if you were, because one of the things that we struggle with, we've been doing this show for 20 months or whatever, and we haven't made a cent on the podcast, haven't monetized at all. I think there's partly an excuse on we're waiting for the right time, but the real answer is where we haven't asked the question.
Yeah.
How do you know what something is worth?
So partnerships are always worth more than money. So it's always the business that you're doing the deal with. But I literally wrote out a list and I realised, so if I was standing on the floor at the Melbourne Town Hall and I was looking at the stage, there's a whole banner from a video that's being filmed that could be running across that. Now, that means that every photo from that angle and every video, you could have your business across there. And I'm going to charge you $2,500 for that because that photo, that footage, it's not just there for 12 months. Yeah, it's there for life. So that was sold. All the booths, you know, so we had all the different businesses. So we had 28 booths and I looked at other festivals, other events. I wouldn't just – there was only one other dance event in Australia at that time, but I would go to a lot of conferences and I would look and see how they would do it and I'd say, I'm not buying today, but would you mind sharing with me your prospectus, you know, how your sponsorship packages and things like that. So I got really just kind of – without sounding funny, but good at identifying what we had was worthy of your investment.
How did you know what to spend money on? So when you've got that, it's
I
like
tried not to spend it at all.
Is that part, like, so say you think about using that banner analogy.
Yep.
You go into the printer and they're saying, now there's this type of material or that type of material. This one's a little bit more, but it's a little bit more primo.
Yeah.
How do you make a decision on where to spend it?
I mean, you guys are amazing with your logo, but I remember wanting a media wall because people who had media walls were so professional. Yeah. And I couldn't afford the $1,000 for the media wall. So it was, okay, $1,000 for the media wall. We've got to double it. So for $2,000, Tommy, you can have the Daily Talk Show beside VDF and every official photo will be in front of that media wall. And then I got my media wall. I had to put up with your logo, but I got my media wall.
So is it for every expense saying, okay, I need to sell enough to cover that?
Yeah. 100%. Yep. So if I wanted something, I had to cover it.
And when you go to sell a business like that or an operation, what are they buying and how do you package it up so it is something that you sell?
In the case of the dance festival, you were kind of buying into a community and you were buying into a feeling because it wasn't bricks and mortar. I wasn't saying, you know, I'm selling you this jumper or this cup or anything. It was your investment is into the community and your impact through that will be generational. So that was the kind of language that I talked about. So we wanted to create an environment that was all about community and not about competition, coming together to learn and to celebrate and lift each other up and understand that in dance, it's not about being the best dancer in the room. It's about dancing. So, and having dance for your life. So by you investing in that, you're buying into the dream with me.
Yeah.
So that, you know, those people that gave me money, I ended up, you know, I'd go to their kids' birthday party, you know, like the relationships were huge. I knew when their birthdays were on, I'd send them cards. If someone died in their family and we would send them flowers. And when I say we did have a team, but I had to do that stuff because.
Got little Timmy's birthday.
Yeah.
Bloody annoying.
Yeah, but it was those little things and handwriting dance studio owners right across Victoria. I mean, they started coming from every state in Australia. They started coming from America and New Zealand and the Philippines. And I would write a card that said, thank you for choosing to spend your money on me. So for you might have had to, if you were the parent, you know, I used to stand at the door when they'd open the doors to the Victorian Dance Festival, stand there. So you had to walk past me on the way through so I could say thank you. Like, thank you, Mum, for working 12 hours to buy that one ticket for your daughter to be here today. Thank you. You had to pack shelves or do whatever you had to do for them to come. So that was, that's how I treated it. Like, So the moment the doors would open, you'd be thinking, I hope there's someone out there. And that Melbourne Town Hall Day, the people wrapped around right around the corner at Swanston Street, and it was just, crazy.
So are you then really protective of that? So finding someone to buy it, were there a lot of sort of rules around if you're going to do this, I want to make sure that X, Y, and Z?
I mean, you can't kind of do that. You just have to kind of hope. And they had their first event this year and, thousands of people still turned up and they still use that language, community, not competition. And, but they're putting their spin on it. It's, targeted differently and all that kind of stuff. But, I have to walk away.
Yeah. Was it hard to walk away?
I didn't realise, and I don't think people talk about it, but when you sell a business, if you've built it from scratch, you grieve, like literally grieve for it, because you put your heart and soul into it and all of a sudden someone's running off and doing something else with it. But yeah, and you've been used to running at a pace, of every minute of every hour thinking about, is there another way to get more people to come, or how am I going to pay that bill, or is that contract signed, or is that instructor flying in at the right time? There's all these, your project management on overdrive for, every hour of every minute of every day.
How different is building a business to building your personal brand, which is what you're paid to do now for radio? It's like they're employing Kate, Meade.
Yeah. It's I've always said the only time you'll ever see me really arc up is if I think my name is in jeopardy. Like I always like to think, your name is everything. That's the only thing that you've got. Like,
that was real good. Ready for a punch up.
But it's the only thing that you've got at the end of the day is your name. So hopefully you always think that anyone that you've worked with, they'll walk away and go, oh, they might not say I'm cruisy, but they might go, she was fun and she said yes and she had energy, and I would definitely recommend working with her again. So they're the things.
Well, that's branding, what people say about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and then living it every day. Yeah.
So the business brand versus personal brand, or do you see them as I'm bringing Kate Meade personal brand and embodying that within?
When I talked about the grief of selling a business, and I keep pointing to the thing because you've got to that makes no
but
sense.
you can't remember things. But I do remember Women of Influence, which I want to get to.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But it, I attach myself to the Victorian Dance Festival. I thought who I is the founder of the Victorian Dance Festival. Hi, I'm Kate Meade. I'm the founder of the Victorian Dance Festival. That's who I was, but that's not who I am, and dance is not who I am, I had to separate it. Yeah, and I didn't realise at the time that I had wrapped up so much of who I was and what I was about in that festival.
Is there a way
I had
of
to
so by cutting that off, I guess the one way of doing it is just wrapping yourself up into a completely other brand, which has the risk again of doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. Except that I like to think I'm smarter this time.
Yeah.
And so how do you detach? We had Shanna Kennedy on, who talks about you're not your job.
Yeah.
Who are you when you're not your job? Do you
I'm
think?
a mum. Yeah. Just a mum with 3 kids. Yeah. That's it.
And do you think that what does that mean from your work and brand and all that sort of thing? Does that how does that come through in?
So I think I like to think if you were flicking over or flicking through the social media, you're seeing a gamut of, what's she about, or what, 1 minute she's on the beach and the next minute she's in New York, or next minute she's in the radio station. I can't keep up with that woman, and I'm okay with that because that's generally kind of what my life looks like.
Yeah.
So, there is, I know that we're supposed to be separate, and we should be, if you're not on air, who you're supposed to be. And I can look you in the eye and say, I am a mess of everything mixed in together, and I just think, and then you just have to keep evolving through it.
Well, I guess the you are not your job is slightly different when it comes to talent, because you sort of are you are your personality.
Yeah.
You are bringing yourself every single.
Yeah. So the
every single
first
day.
year of, regional radio, I could go to the supermarket in my Ugg boots. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I see.
So What were you going to say?
I only
something?
did it once.
And you got spotted first time you did it?
Yeah. So just don't do it.
What did they say? Did they call the radio show or what? Like it just becomes.
No, they kind of look at you funny.
Yeah.
And then,
Maybe they didn't know
and
you
then
from
they
the
kind of
radio.
come back, in another aisle, and then they go, "Is that you on the radio?"
That's so funny.
Oh, I got to get out of here. I'm hyperventilating.
So with the radio stuff, you have to ask, get permission a lot.
Yeah.
With Women of Influence, your podcast. I know that's through ACE
Yeah.
still, but do you get a lot of the freedoms of that sort of having your own business, being able to build something yourself?
Yeah. Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's so the idea of the Women of Influence podcast came about because of literally the dance festival. The Australian Financial Review run an award system called the 100 Women of Influence, and I got listed on the 100,
amazing.
which is still
Amazing.
crazy
Yeah.
to even think about it. But I got up to Sydney and I opened up the program, and inside it were 100 women, and I thought some of them we know, Tracy Spicer was in there, and there were some others in there, and I thought. But there was a woman who'd created a breast shield, and another woman that was, created a brand. Another was curing cancer. And I thought, how do we not know these stories? Someone needs to tell these stories. And I started speaking actually to Craig Bruce about it, and I spoke to Jay Mueller about it. And I thought, this is a podcast. This is telling not just famous people's stories. This is about telling anybody's stories, and instead of telling everyone's stories, let's niche it in and let's just own women. Let's just really focus in on women's stories and celebrate what they've been doing. So unknown or known, it doesn't matter. Pitched it to Ace Radio because I wanted to use their equipment for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always great.
And I was pretty confident I was going to get a yes for that. And then they said, can you just hold a little bit? And I'd kind of been pitching it to some other people, and they'd been saying, yeah, well, we could do an ad share with it, if you put it on our platform type thing, and kept kind of hesitating. But the radio Ace Radio team went over to Radio Days and come back from that, and it was all about podcasting and the change in the audio world. And they'd said, yep, we're going to let you do this, and you can do it on your own. Or you can do it under ACE. And I reckon it took me a month because of this very fear. They could still shut down that at any time. Do you know what I mean? If they wanted to, that's the risk that I decided to go with. But
What's the reward? So there's the risk. What's the bit? So you get the equipment.
Yep.
What's the other thing?
Because we're talking about a radio company. So you guys have skills that I don't. So in terms of what a radio company has, I mean, they've got a whole digital team. So for me, if I wanted to create the online branding and stuff that I've got now, like I've been able to be down to the nitpick of, I don't like that color green, I don't like that. I need to build a media kit here what's our font that runs through all of it. I need to know, we need to have the photo statement. I would have spent 20 grand just through, if I was a client going out to a company to do this for me, that's, and I need the website up and done, and they say, yes, okay, no worries, I put it in, and I wouldn't have had the money then to have done that on my own. So, that support is incredible. So that's the risk I run though.
Yeah.
They could still shut it down at any time. So I'm like, how many numbers did I get today?
Does it feel like that? Is the analytics, are they taking note?
I think, definitely taking note. But I also think it's the first, they are a radio predominant, they're a radio business. So they're dipping their toe in the water. And I always, if a chance comes up and you get to talk to them about it, I'll say to the managers, that's great that we're dipping a toe in, but you realise in, say, 3 years' time from now or 4 years' time, you'll only have one
which is good for you though, right?
That's the thing. And I kept going because I kept saying, I'm on breakfast radio, so I'm a radio nerd. I love, the old-fashioned wireless, but I listen to audio on demand based on the topic and based on what I want to hear. And I do that with Netflix, and I do that. I don't have Foxtel anymore, and all those types of things are coming into play now. So maybe we need to start having those conversations. So at the moment, while there's a little bit of pressure, like, oh, okay, you didn't get many listening to that one. Oh, yeah, I know. I'll share it some more.
It's early, but it's early days as well. So I feel like you need to you've got to be in it. Like, what's the alternative?
That was the
This-
thing.
yeah.
And it's just such a new thing and learning as we go. Even the art of interviewing someone, I had interviewed 18 women, so 18 hours worth of interviewing before I released the first one. And now I listen back to the 18 and I can't release one of them. I'm having to redo them now.
Well, you actually are doing that.
I have to redo them because I sound like
You just don't listen to them. That's what we do.
Oh.
We
Yeah,
just
it's the
send
best
it
way to
out
do
into
it.
the world.
It's just the worst.
Yeah. So was there a level of confidence going in that then you do it and you go, okay, the confidence to get it across the line
Yeah.
wasn't in line with my skill
Yeah.
set?
So I used to say, I think the concept of the Women of Influence podcast is good, right? So I feel like I'm onto something. If I had pitched this somewhere else and I'd said, and I think we might get a superstar to host it, chances are this thing would probably sit at a number, one, like you put a celebrity in, I'm going to host this podcast and we're just going to be about women. That would done it. So I'm actually the weak link in it.
But that's the
So-
thing. But that's the thing. Like that's like us.
Oh, we're the
are-
weak link.
We're the weak link. Well, we are, right. We came into this with no audience,
Yeah.
and so we're building completely from scratch.
Yeah.
But there's a beauty in the weak link because the thing is everything that you do, like I've said it to you before on DMs, like your branding and the stuff, like it looks like a number one show.
Yeah, and that was, one of the first comments was I laid it out on the table, and I had a couple of consultants in and I was like, can I let you look at this? And they said, Kate, this looks amazing. You better live up to this. And then I was like, I'm going to be sick because I thought, I'm not there yet. Like I'm 3 years into this radio career or, I've just got to get good quick. And the only way that you get better is by doing what?
Yeah,
Day
doing
in,
it.
day
Yeah.
out, doing it. So I can hear the interviewing technique getting better. But I also, we just 3 weeks ago opened up a Facebook group and there's about 2,000 people in there.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
It's crazy. And I had to bring them in on the journey with me. So they're going to grow as I grow, and they tell me who they want to hear and give me feedback and what was your takeaway and all that type of stuff. So
Do you think
I'm growing in front of them
Yeah.
and they're kind of coming with me. If that, like I can't almost.
So why
funny things
re-record
happen.
any others? Like I feel like
Because
just
we
put it
move
out.
forward, like it would.
Yeah.
But but there is something in the in that process in like we all start from like you go to any podcast like on the weekend I went back to Joe Rogan's first 15 podcasts and just reveled in how shit they were, right? And just like, oh, this is so good. I can't even hear what he's saying. But there is but I think that there is something in that. Like you have to put like and putting out it's interesting. The thoughts on quality, and perfectionism.
Yeah.
How has that played through on your journey?
Yeah,
so
so
far?
I have trouble with it because I want it to be as spot on. Yeah, so the gap of where I'm at and where I want it to be, it's what it is, you
Yeah.
know. So I've got to push those feelings really deep down because otherwise you wouldn't run a business, you wouldn't put a podcast out if you couldn't control that feeling of inadequacy and not being good enough. So you've got to ignore it.
So do you need to
push
put it
on.
out though? I wonder if the thing is like, do you feel like you were getting the lessons by recording, being like, it's not up to standard and then redoing it?
I kind of, when I described those first 18, I feel like I was doing my apprenticeship or the training ground before it went up. Yeah, I know what you're saying. And some of them I go, oh, we should do that. But even the lesson of originally, so we are based in regional Victoria. I can come down to Melbourne sometimes and 3AW let me record from their studio, which is amazing,
great.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we
The
can
balloon's
record
got
it.
it. Got it across the line.
And do that. But so the bulk of the interviews has to be done via phone. Now, I was listening back to the podcast, like the practice ones, and we'd put them together. Well, they weren't practice ones, but we put them together like they were going to be released. And I was saying, you know, the one thing that's letting us down is the audio quality. Because if you're a podcaster, is there nothing better when it's crystal clear and crisp and it sounds professional? So then we found, we did some more research and we found out, well, Skype is the closest thing that you're going to get to a nice clear sound other than face to face. So so all of those other ones are done via phone, and the other, these ones now are moving forward via Skype. So I don't know. I keep wondering, could I montage them? And I just go, no, I'll just redo it. I'll just redo it. I'll just be there till 3 a.m. every day.
What did you say to the guests that you recorded? Was the expectation that, hey, this is a trial, they might not go out?
No. It was, talk about belief in the product. Like, we are launching a podcast that's going to change the way that women talk about women's achievements.
Yeah.
And I think you are a woman of influence, and would you join me on this journey?
Yeah.
So that's what it was about. So I do have to go back and do those 18. But so I haven't, it's just moving forward.
Yeah.
When do you know when something's of the right time to approach it? Because you could look retrospectively and say, oh, well, do an 18. It's probably not the right time. Or is it?
Yeah.
What's your perspective on
what
right
happened
time?
was I'd written out the list of women that I would love to speak to. So I had my, top 50 or whatever, and they include people like Michelle Obama and, just who are not Australian, but that's not the point. But one of them was Lana Wilkinson. And I'd recorded her via the phone. It was one of the early ones, and the Logies were happening. And she's a stylist, and she was dressing 6 women at the Logies, and I was being sent up to the Logies to report for the morning rush. So I just said to the ACE team, we've got to release, she's our number one, and we're going to piggyback all our Instagram on her and hashtag Logies and stylists and dresses and da-da-da. So our first response or first podcast had a really surprising number, and then we thought that we would have all those types of numbers moving forward, and it doesn't look like that. So it was, I go, it was a stroke of genius, but I don't know if it really was or not, but it just felt like the timing was right to launch it. But I reckon I sent some messages saying, this is the worst feeling. It was the worst the night before, knowing that people were going to get a notification to say that there's an episode there.
Do you think launches are overrated?
They're just horrific.
Yeah. Well, in some ways,
exciting. They're so exciting.
It's like that's the lowest, because I think about back to we talk about our numbers and how little we had in the first 6 months or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you think about okay, how much pain, the launch, the episode 1 will potentially have the lowest amount of the way that I guess we viewed it is it's probably going to be our shittest episode. We just got to get it through 2, 3.
Yeah.
And so there's a beauty in, when I did a podcast called Josh Speaking, I had all of the, everyone was an amazing guest straight up. Where I guess with the Daily Talk Show, we did 50 episodes before we had a guest, 20 episodes before we told anyone. I wonder if that launch of, because I feel like I do the same thing, which is I need the usernames, I need the website, I need to have everything dialed in so that day one it is that world's best show.
Well, that was the challenge. I mean, our marketing looks so spot on. So my fear then was, so they listen to the first episode and they go, that's not what we were buying into. We were buying into, so that's why it was really important just to connect, just keep connecting at a fundamental level. So the strategy around the podcast for me is not necessarily, and it's been interesting even having sometimes the influencers on, because you think, we'll get an influencer on and they'll share it, and then they don't share it. And then you think, what did I even talk to you for?
We need that approach.
So, but the strategy around it was, so if I interview you in your community, I tell your story and what you've done. It doesn't have to be about winning awards. It's the impact that you've had or your challenges and how you got through them. And you might live in a small town, but you will share it and be proud of that you are then a woman of influence. And then you share it with your family and friends who then listen to it, and then it pods up. And then I will always say to you, who's inspired you? Who's helped you shape who you are? Who do you think I should talk to? And so it then leapfrogs onto the next person and then bubbles out from here, and then it goes over here. So that's kind of the strategy around building the community that it is, So if I interview you, you tell me tell, you know, I've been on the podcast or whatever, and then
I mean,
keeps
yeah,
going
it's that
from there.
network effect which works well.
Yeah, very probably Seth Godin
Yeah.
stuff, which, you know, you guys are huge fans of too. But yeah, I just think, it's just early days. And I think the main frustration is there's so many stories out there. I just want to hear the stories.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So if I'm happy, if people are happy for me to bumble through a bit as it is growing and allow me to be curious and allow me to celebrate other people, it'll just keep ticking over, you know, and 3 years down the track. So 3 years down the track, I say it'll be a national brand. And in 5 years' time, we should see it, you know, popping around all over the place.
Absolutely.
So you do
That's
have a
kind
10-year,
of
10-year plan. You've got that 10-year plan.
No, I just kind of say, because it's not going to happen. Like, it's not going to happen in 10 episodes. Like,
Yeah.
I remember saying to the managers, right, in 10 episodes, we're going to have a sit-down meeting and, you know, strategize this thing out. And then I was like, 10 episodes coming, I was like, let's not get together yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It takes
You know, like,
way
we need
longer.
more time.
Yeah. Well, we're celebrating 500 episodes next month, and we are
Do you
literally.
need balloons?
Well, 500 of them.
Venue we are thinking.
Yeah. Oh, that would be great.
yeah.
We
Have
should
some.
do something.
Oh, you
Yeah.
can't say yet.
Yeah. No, we can. No, well, I just think the balloon thing, we need to move on from using balloons, guys, if anything. But no,
Could bring some bad branding
yeah,
for the.
we're talking
Balloons,
about
bubbles.
perfect days, and both Tommy and I, when we we're talking about our perfect day, it was around like being near water and being able to like, you know, get up early in the morning and experience nature. Being, you know, where you live. Is that your everyday? Like, have you got? I saw that they won like the most livable.
Yeah, most livable city in
yeah,
the world or whatever. Yeah.
So, are you living your perfect day now? Is it just like, you know, amazing coastal lifestyle, or what is?
No, it's windy as all well.
It's known for being windy, isn't it?
Oh, it's
Well, so you
horrific.
think the awards are a bit bullshit?
Oh,
is it?
no. Look, you
She
got
spearheaded the campaign. I can imagine you getting
you
that
are
one across
face
the
of-
line.
yeah.
come live in Warrnambool. No, but I mean, it was marked on house prices. You know, the medium house price is 340,000. It's got the whales. It's got good road commute traffic. I rang you because I couldn't believe I was running late here, and I'm going. I'm 6 k's away. It says it's going to take me 20 minutes. Are you
Yeah.
kidding? We're not. Yeah. So all of life is easier and slower, and all those types of things. So yeah. Come to Warrnambool and retire.
So, do you think would you be there long term? When you think about your vision as things are, the future of work is remote. I've got the dream of one day. I went to Stanley in Tasmania once.
Yeah.
And I remember it being really nice, which people have then emailed us about it, saying that I've got a warped perception of what it was. What it
It
was
looks
like.
nice if you look
Yeah.
at photos of it.
Yeah, but the idea of like having like an ISDN line or so, whatever the new tech is, and just being able to sit in the booth and doing your thing.
So VDF was built, I was living in Peterborough on the Great Ocean Road. So Peterborough is about 15 minutes from the 12 Apostles, right? So I would literally put my kids on a bus at 8:30 and go for a walk for 5 k's along the coast. Like the
nice.
Great Ocean
Yeah,
Road
yeah.
coast, like not just any old coast, and then come back, and by 10 o'clock I'd be, you know, on the computer and Skyping and phone calling and thing. The whole thing, the event that was happening in Melbourne or in another regional town 2.5, 3 hours away from me was being built, remotely from Peterborough, and I just go, you know, we're getting better at it, but we could still be getting a lot better at allowing, like my graphics designer was based, one was up in Sydney and one was in Melbourne. And they were like, oh, don't you need to have all your team here? Nah, I just want the best person. I want to work with the best person.
Yeah.
That's what it's always, you know, identify who the best person is. And okay, so they need to work from a shed in Stanley. Cool.
Yeah.
As long as they send their work in,
It's
you
been
know.
more
Like,
than a shed.
No,
It'll be a
that will be
cottage.
the reality.
It'll be
A shed
It'll be a
is
cottage.
what you'll
Yeah,
have,
really
mate.
nice, beautiful
And
cottage.
so
Yeah.
I think a lot of people's mindset is, no, I need to be in the hustle and bustle.
Need to be
of
in New
Melbourne
York
or-
City.
Yeah, New York, Sydney.
yeah. Well, I suppose the opportunities probably are here, but, you know, you do the best with what you've got.
I mean, you're
Yeah.
proof that like some of those.
but aren't I a little crazy?
Yeah, but I think isn't that
What's a
what you
bit-
need to be? You need to be a little bit crazy.
Yeah. Look, I think, I don't know. I think I said really early, maybe before, even when I was walking in, the work that I do, I would approach it whether I was living in regional Victoria or regional Queensland or metro Melbourne, heart of Sydney. I would work the same standards. So, I mean, travel is only a barrier, that you've got to push through in some capacity, like make it work at all costs. That's what it was, just make it work, find a way to make it work. And sometimes that means moving, and sometimes it's, okay, well, I can't move, so what's the best thing I can do? So, but yeah, you never say never, right?
Yeah.
What's a bit of a Kate Meade checklist of before you send something off to somebody to ask for something, whether it be a job,
This is more for us. We need this.
whether it be a pitch, whether it be for a business idea or opportunity?
Yeah. So of sending that first email?
Yeah,
is that what
so
you're saying?
I mean, it just might be one interaction or it might be a pitch that you put together. What are some sort of checklists you go through to make sure that this is
You're
right?
prepared,
Because
yeah.
some people might not feel like it's not the right time, but
Yeah.
then when is the right time to send something?
Yeah. So you've got to send it. You've got to send it within that hour before you doubt kicks in, or for whatever reason someone says no. So you got to go quick. If for the radio show or for VDF or for now Women of Influence, I've got one. I have a prospectus that's already made up, which tells you
What does a prospectus mean?
prospectus.
Prospectus.
Pitch doc?
Yeah, like a
What did you say? I said,
doc?
I said prospectus, and then you said pitch.
sponsor.
Is it that?
What
Your
is-
sponsorship document.
What's the actual word? We do a word of the day sometimes. What is the definition of the word prospectus? 97?
Prospectus.
Prospectus, thank
A
you.
printed booklet advertising a school or university to potential parents or students.
Okay.
So it's similar to that.
Or giving details of an offer that could benefit investors.
There we go.
So that is my most prized document. That I will spend hours on that. And so your branding on the front, inside that first thing, what it's about.
Do you have like a Google Doc open or something? Like, are you writing stuff out first?
No,
or?
it's done once, so I make a size one fits all, type kind of template. All the information or any stats that I think are really important. So I leave off anything that doesn't paint us in a great light. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter how many people we've got listening. This is the greatest thing that you've ever seen. Yeah. And then options for them to get involved in type thing. So I like to give them 3 options, like this would be your gold standard or whatever it might be, and keep using that word partnership. And then the very back page is any images or great whatevers. And then
So like 3 pages. How many pages do you think?
well, it depends. The Victorian Dance Festival got to a point because there were that many different things that you could buy, because I was literally selling everything. I think it was about 7 pages long.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to share that document with you.
okay, yeah.
But I
We
like to
start
keep
our own
it.
dance festival. We're not creative enough to maneuver it in any way.
but any of this
but
stuff
we will
is
have
a
a
plot.
photo wall.
Yeah,
GDF, Gronk Dance Festival.
that I would go to, pay money for. But at the very back page, I always say the most important part is I say, thanks for taking a look at it. Here's the best thing. You're working with me. You're going to work with me. You're not going to work with 10 other people. You're going to work with me directly. And we can adapt any one of these packages or these ideas to suit your outcomes, your objectives, and how we're going to make it work. So the world's our oyster. So that's how we would do
great.
that. So that's the final thing I leave them with. Like, if I've got your attention a little bit, but it's not all quite fitting. We're not rigid. We're not a rigid box here. Let's create something that is beneficial for the both of us. And then, in that email, I'm saying, hey, my name's Kate, lovely to meet you at. So that's why going to events and being places and meeting as many people as I can is great. And then I always follow up with an email that just says, hey, we're chatting about whatever we were talking about. Here's some stuff. Thank you for your consideration. Yeah. And then follow back up the week later.
You put it in like a calendar or something? How do you remember what you got to do?
I don't know.
You just
I
do it,
don't. I
just
just do. I walk around. I'm up to about 4 notebooks at the moment.
Yeah.
And I need them all because you're going to flick back through.
Yeah.
But it just pops into your head. I should follow up with Josh and see if he wants to partner on this thing that we're doing or
And so what has Ace Radio taken from your, I guess there's probably salespeople that are less like competent in sales than what you are. Like you I think you're a great salesperson.
Well, I don't do any sales at
Yeah.
Ace. Yeah. So I have to really, that's not my job to do that. So I've got to.
But the
It's
thing
not
is,
direct sales.
but,
It's
but
Yeah.
it's not even. But the thing is, you coming up with your idea, it is sales because you're already thinking about. It should be going to here, and here, and it's
Yeah.
connected with that. And
Yeah.
so then do you?
So I hand over. Then we have a national sales director, a manager, and we have a general local sales manager, right? So one will handle national brands and the other will handle local businesses across all the markets. And so they will decide, you know, amongst themselves, okay, well, Kate's got this idea. Is it going to work? Don't know, yes or no. Is it something we should pitch to a KFC or a, you know, national, or is it something that we'll sell locally? Yeah. So, and that was just about, you know, that first year where I said that I had all these gaps of knowledge. I didn't understand how the radio business sold advertising. So I had to learn that so that when I could get, you know, come up with an idea, yeah, we could apply it. But yeah, I don't have to go out and, you know, try and sell it like, you know, to get money for it. But I had to sell it to Trafalgar or to, you know, the MCG.
So the MCG example.
Yeah.
So if you've got, so when are you bringing in the sales manager to take over that, like those types of relationships?
You know that saying about asking for permission
Oh,
after?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh gosh. But yeah, I think I'm having that moment where you go, should I even be saying that? But it's come up with everything, get it all out there, and then you know, deal with those little parts as they come.
Well, I think that, but that's the
day.
entrepreneurial bit, right?
Yeah.
That's the bit. So you need to.
No, look,
that only works if you have the talent and skills to be able to back it up, right? You can be really, you can do that, and if you can't, then help and connect the dots and make it happen, it will fall flat.
The thing with the MCG stuff is that I could have had this great wishy-washy idea, but I knew in order for, I need all my, so I have 9 general managers, right? And 9 managers that I have to have on board with an idea, and some you'll win over straight away and others won't. But if I pitch an idea, we're going to play backyard cricket on the MCG, and they go, oh yeah, good idea. It's not going to make us any money. And then I go, and here's your sales strategy. I mean, how can you say no?
It's doing the work for them.
Isn't it stacking the odds so it, you know,
there's a lot of stacking if you've got 9 people that you have to.
A lot of stacks on.
And so do you?
It gets busy, I tell you.
Is it like a prioritization of like, okay, if I get these 3, it's like if you get John on board, you know that you're going to be able
John is number 1, has to be on board. If I haven't got John, it's out. Yeah. So I have to win him over first. And then content director. So, and then it's monetary and what is it, logistically, how's it going to work? Like, are we going to have to all stay in Melbourne? How much is that going to cost? Oh, don't worry, we're going to try and build a partnership with someone, or, you know, how, you know, like, have you thought about all the, so you have to have an answer for every question before they're going to come at you. And that is something that had to be learnt over time.
For a creative person that's, you know, is really hell-bent on ideas, do you think the best ideas actually win, or it's a combination of the sell, you know, the pitch, also the idea?
Do you know, I was thinking about that, and I thought it's just more about volume, isn't it, in radio and anything entrepreneur, isn't it volume of ideas and not getting so hung up on, you know, when they say no, instead of being like, oh, well, tell me I'm never going to speak to you again. Okay, cool. You know, move on. Next idea.
You need to have enough balls in. I know that with clients.
Idea.
If you only do 1 pitch, you're going to feel it. But if you've got like 50 pitches that have gone out to people, you don't have time to get upset because you've got heaps of other people.
Your balls reference was to the balls in the air. The way you said it sounded like you need enough balls.
Oh, really? Because I've done the juggling analogy a lot. You need to have enough balls of
in
juggling.
The air, not just balls. But it helps.
I'm not offended.
I mean, Kate, mate, you've got balls. Like, I think that's where people, and I asked you about the confidence thing, is like how some people feel I've got no confidence, which is why I won't send something or do something. Do you need confidence to do this stuff?
You know, and that's the thing, that's about, isn't all of this or what you put out to the world or what you put out on social media that very best version of yourself? Like Kate on her own, sitting on the couch with the 3 kids in her jammies, is thinking, how many people at work did I upset today? You know, like, did I push them too hard, or because I care about the 1%, or am happy to stay back for 12 hours, you know, to do that extra stuff. That doesn't mean that your work ethic's the same as that. So I hope I didn't upset you, and, you know, or those types of things. And in moments of, do I want to go ahead with that idea? You just got to go with it. You know, like you've got to push. For me, I just have to push any self-doubt right down. But very home Kate is like, oh God, what am I doing? You know, like
feel it and do it anyway.
yeah, you've got to feel it because otherwise, isn't that part of the adrenaline rush of it all?
Yeah.
Like, is this even going to work? Are they even going to say yes to this?
I mean, it's so inspiring. I feel like it's a massive kick up the ass to us where it's like you can create so many stories and make a vision that's small, but you're someone that's expanded out that, right? We've got a bunch of people who listen who are in regional markets who, you know, I'm sure have the conversations with themselves where the CD won't let me do this or I can't do that or we have to do local. I think you're a great example of someone who's like expansive and thinking about just make it happen.
I can't come up with a better analogy than this, and I'm sorry, but I like to think of 11. Aim for 11, right? Aim for 11.
It's a spinal tap.
Yeah. Aim for a number 11. Yeah. And then if you land on a 7, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you failed.
Oh,
you landed on a great version of the idea. And if you're not so helpful, you know, any idea that you put through, the very first idea is not where it finishes. The first idea, you know, the landing idea is a form of, you know, where it wraps up. But aim for 11, I say.
Yeah.
Finish at 7 and everyone's happy.
I like it.
I love it.
It's kind of allowing fair expectations.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like if you don't aim it, you're definitely not going to get there.
Well,
Well, you do it with if money you're going for a budget, it's like put the budget really high because if you just get half of that,
exactly.
If you only aimed at half of that,
you're never.
And I think there is like a limiting belief we put on ourselves in these things we go for. If you get transfixed on a number, or you know,
what can be really easy, like say talking about advertising on say this podcast. It'd be easy for us to really lowball it, so it's an absolute no-brainer. But then we haven't. But if we actually spend some time in, right, what's the value? How can we package it in a better way?
And the partnership, like potentially, I mean, you go to bed with somebody. You are going to bed with that person. If it's a 3-month deal and you don't live up, you know, they turn out to be nightmares or high maintenance or hard work, and you think, oh, was it even worth the money? Nah. Don't go there.
Are you talking about marriage right now? I've been in a 3-year deal at the moment. It's going good. Sleeps well. One last thing, the free thing. So doing shit for free and doing stuff for money. Doing stuff for free, I've found there's a level of confidence because you're not paying and I'm going to impress. And so then you'll be impressed. But then you're like, that can't last forever. So you do that in the early stage of your career.
Yeah.
And then you've got the other side where you're like, now I need to start charging and making big promises.
Yeah. So I play somewhere in the middle. So in the dance world, I can charge. In the radio, what do we call this world?
Media land.
This other land, in this other land that I'm playing around in at the moment, I will say yes to every opportunity that's in front of me. Yeah. I want to be the person that's ready to, you know, absolutely. I mean.
So when's the switch though? When do you go, yes. So for instance, VDF, when did you go, okay, now it's time to charge?
Because say in the dance industry, I just didn't have to do it now if I didn't like the event or the message or the whatever. But I would still say no to a free event if I wasn't on board with what they were doing anyway, you know.
It's all a value exchange.
Yeah.
And so once you've built up the value, I guess,
it
makes a lot of sense.
I think if you're building anything, you've just got to be everywhere. Be everywhere until you need to rest, you know, so.
Is that dead? you talking resting as dying?
Well, the line, I suppose, at my house is when my husband taps me on the shoulder and says, hello, you coming home? Or? I go, yeah, home in 5.
Oh, you live close.
Yeah,
so good. Thank you so much, Kate.
No.
I love following you on Instagram and seeing all the stuff because it's even better hearing you talk about it, all of those things, because as you said, there's that highlights real stuff to the world that we're all in now, but there is so much tactic and stuff. And I think from today, definitely, I think we'll be putting all of those things. We'll definitely get a PDF together finally.
I'll send you through a template and you can just take my logo out and pop yours in and go from there.
We just get a little banner down here. It's $2.5 grand.
that's exactly everything. You know, you're halfway there, they can have a little logo in here.
Yeah. And Ben Fordham is not paying with his beer mug.
That's
His,
exactly what I thought when you placed
coaster.
it there at the beginning.
No,
I
he's
thought,
paying. Yeah, he's paying.
but back at you guys, because I go, you know, it's a 10-year plan, it's a commitment, it's something special. And I think by the time the world catches up to this, you guys are going to be like, show me the money.
Well, it's going to be so fun. Like, imagine Women of Influence, the daily talk show, like what that's going to look like
Do
in
you
10
think it looks
10
like
years.
versions of Netflix?
Yeah, well,
like we're all going to be on one.
Netflix shows. Yeah.
Well, I
That's
think
a great idea.
I think
Thinking big,
there's-
see?
yeah.
I was thinking Stan. I was thinking Netflix.
Stan, I actually found out Stan's like connected with Channel 9.
Is
It's
it?
all our mates at Channel 9 when we make Stan jokes. Like Stan might have cash to spend. I'm
No,
just
I'm
saying.
serious. I'll go Stan.
Hey, I know someone that works at Stan.
Oh yeah, see, so Stan's fucking great. I've got no issues with Stan.
Netflix Stan.
So
Is
this the
anyone picky at this point?
This is the problem with what we do with podcast. We don't hold back. I guess within radio, you got to be thinking. I remember I did a tweet when I was on Fifi and Jules about a restaurant, and I was like, I hate this restaurant in Port Melbourne. And then Kerry Jones, who was the executive producer, said, Josh, you got to take that down because they're a client.
Yeah.
You had
Hey,
any
I tried to
client
ring my
issues, or-
CEO before I came here today because I thought, I don't really know what you want to, I don't really know where you want to go. So I just want to make sure. Anyway, he didn't take the call and I thought, well,
Yeah, we should
We'll
be
just
fine.
see.
We'll see how it goes.
Too bad. So sad.
well, I sent a text message. I tried to call.
Yeah.
We are where we are.
Is that a disclaimer?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's
T's and C's.
it's the Daily Talk Show. Women of Influence is the podcast. Definitely check that out. And is it Kate Meade on Instagram?
Yeah.
Check her out there too. It's the Daily Talk Show. We'll see you tomorrow, guys.
See you guys.